Hi folks, Mondeo Mk3 gearbox removal, new clutch DMF flywheel, part 3. Right, well, as you remember in the last video, light beat us and it got a bit dark. We now got the situation where I should have undone the central hub nuts of the drive shafts when the car was on the floor, but I didn't do. I forgot all about it, to be honest with you. So the car's up in the air. I've taken this disc brake pad off and disc as well, so you know we just got the rotor. So let's take a look at the way I'm going to tackle that, and also the other side, which has still got the rotor on. So if you're in the same situation, you might be able to use these little tips and tricks to undo the central hub nut. Right, well, as you can probably see here, there's the hub nut. This is a 32mm nut on this one, and as you see, there's no way I can hold it now. I could put my foot on the brake, but there's no brake on this side, so I can't stop it from turning. I could lock the flywheel up by putting something in where the starter motor was to lock the ring gear up, but again, can't be bothered to do that. So this is a way which I've actually undone this one, by the way, but I'm going to show you it. But on the other side, I haven't touched, and that's in a slightly different situation because that one's still got the hub on. So let's show you how I undone this one first of all, while the car was up in the air in this situation. Well, first of all, this undoes in the normal anti-clockwise direction, and all I've done, I had my old jack stand, jack pump up handle here, and what I've done was basically just put that under there and just sort of wedge it in between the two of the actual lug nuts there, the bolts, and then I basically got me 32mm socket on a 1/2" drive. You don't want to do this with any smaller if possible. And I basically got an extension, and all I've done was literally go down like that with the extension. You might need a lot of extension. In actual fact, this one wasn't actually done up all that tight, to be honest with you. And that will stop the drive shaft from spinning, and that's a simple way to actually undo it while the car's up in the air. As you can see, it is effective. I know it's loose at the moment, but normally these are very, very tight, sort of 200 to 300 foot-pounds of pressure, and even probably a bit more, I think. So I'm just going to undo this one while I'm here. And there we go. It's a funny sort of castellated affair. As you can probably see there, it's a very strange looking nut, but that's the thing there. And as you probably remember there's that pinch bolt for the bottom ball joint there, which I've actually undone. And I think I squirted it with penetrating fluid. I can't remember. I think I did. Just done that. And hopefully all we're going to do now is tap that through. So I'm just going to put it on a few threads and hopefully give it a few taps, and hopefully it should drift out. Yep, there we go, it's drifting out. So I know it's safe to drift out now, so I'll undo that. Give it a bit more squirt. Tap it out. There we go, that's just punched through. Just come around the other side and pull it out, and there you go. And I'm hoping all I've got to do is just basically, I'll give it a squirt of penetrating fluid again, and just give it a bit of a knock. And hopefully be in a position where that will just drop out. Hold on. Right, so the joint's cracked now, so what I'm going to do is just undo these 3 bolts here that support the lower ball joint, because I'm going to have to take these out anyway because the actual gate is split here, and I've actually bought some new ones, so that's what I'm going to do now. Again, got to be careful not to damage your drive shaft gator. A little bit tricky this. Oh, there we go. Hey up, there we go. Bit of brute force was needed. Undoing them 3 bolts was obviously the easiest way, and then pulling the hub away then that just fell out. Sometimes they fall out pretty easily, sometimes that little bit of resistance causes them to stick and can make it a right devil's own job. So that's how I've got over that one anyway. Right, that hub's out now, which means I should be able to push that drive shaft off the hub. There we go, like that. There we go. That's the drive shaft out of the hub. There we go, just like that. So that's now free, and that's this side ready for me to pull the drive shaft out, but I can't do that at the moment because I've not emptied the gearbox. So that's all I'm going to do around this side. As you can see, that can come right out of the way, and that's why you loosen them bolts at the top, because that gives you that freedom there. Look, on the top of the actual suspension turret, that's the freedom you got with that. Right, let's go around the other side then, and we'll see how to undo the hub nut with the disc caliper on. Right, so here we are on the other side. I haven't got much room here. As you can see, I've still got the caliper on this one. This one looks a bit more locked up. Let's have a look. There we go, yeah. That was just a bit stuck on there, where the rust, where it's been out in the open. Right, so I've got the same situation here with the nut needing undoing. So I'm just going to sort of, as you can see, I'm using the crowbar in this instance on this one. There we go, that's locked in there now, look. So, I'll get low enough. Now, I don't know how tight this one is, as I say, but normally these are very, very tight, so. Oh! I think it moved. Oh! There you are, see? There we go. Now, what I could have done, as you know, this is a vented disc here. As you can see, the disc is vented. In other words, it's got these little slots in it. What you could have done was from underneath, obviously not from on top, is drop a screwdriver in there, because them vents go all the way down. They're not just on the surface there. And as you can see, it stops on the actual brake caliper itself, and then I'm able to exactly do the same thing there, as you can see, and undo the wheel nut exactly the same way, just using the screwdriver in. So you can also use that, as I say, that's only if you've got a vented disc there. So that's another alternative of undoing it. That just saves you the hassle of obviously having to take your starter motor out and lock your ring gear up, or put your brakes on and have two people there. That's just a single little way you can get over that little job anyway. So that might be of some use to some of you. Right, okay, there we go. So that's that off. I'm going to take the caliper off just like I did on the other side, remove the disc. So I'm going to do the same as on the other side. I'm going to remove this bottom ball joint, take the pin out, drop the ball joint the same way you see me do the other way, undo this track rod arm, and then I'm going to withdraw the drive shaft out just by tapping that. Now, you probably saw on the other one, I actually hit that with a metal hammer. I should have actually used a copper headed hammer or something like that. I didn't have one at hand, but you know, don't leave me comments saying, oh, you damaged the thread on that. I was quite careful when I was doing it. So anyway, so I'm going to do that now. I won't let you bother seeing that. It's going to be exactly the same as the other side, so I'll see you again in a minute. Right, okay folks, this one was a lot more trickier. One, because of my restricted room which I've got here, and two, I couldn't slide this bottom ball joint out because this one was actually pressed, riveted together onto the actual lower wishbone arm. So I had to use a lot more brute force and hammering and stuff to get this one out. So when I come to change this ball joint, which I'm going to do, as you can see there, it's got these 3 rivets in. So I've got to grind the heads off of these rivets, both sides, and then punch them through. That means I can then pull this ball joint out and then put the new ball joint in with nuts and bolts. Right, so anyway, that's where I am here. So I'm going to have to get underneath the car now and investigate what I'm going to need to disconnect from underneath. But as I say, I've got to lower the subframe, so let's have a quick look underneath. Right, where is the front of the car? I'm just going under the front of the car now, as you can probably see. This is the front cross member of the front subframe. As you can see, it goes right the way along to the back there. It goes up over the top, comes back down, and then comes along here, and this is it here. So there's a few things that are attached to the front subframe. As you can see, this is the radiator here, and it sits in lugs that are mounted onto the actual subframe. Now, as you know from earlier on, we've actually tied that up, so that's fine. There's normally some sort of clips on top here for this sort of wiring loom, I think you'll find. I would imagine this might have been out before or lowered before, because they've been unpopped on this one. So just work your way around it. Working my way to the back of the subframe. I've got this rear engine mount here, which has got to be removed. So that's got to come off. Here's the flexi exhaust pipe, which goes up there, and there's two bolts, which I don't know if you can see or not with the light here. They've got to come off there. There's two bolts there to undo, and obviously two bolts at the joint there, which is like just past the flexible coupling, so that I can actually remove this. Way up there, which you probably can't see at the moment because I can't see it, is the steering rack, which has got to be disconnected from the steering column. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to remove this rear engine mount there and that front mount for that hose pipe, as you can see, and then I'll come back to you in a second. And also take out this exhaust manifold pipe. So that's what I'm going to do now. Right, so that's the exhaust out. As you can see, I needed a long socket to get on them nuts because of the studs sticking through. Just a little note again, I'm underneath the car, as you can see. Here's the subframe beam, there's the gearbox. That's the drain plug on the gearbox there. It's an 8mm Allen key, so that's where you drain it from. And round the front here, which you probably can't see at the moment, is where you fill it from. It's got a fill level. So you fill it from a different position than the drain plug. So I've actually drained it all out as well at the moment. Yeah, I'm nearly there at the moment actually now. So all I've got to do is to undo the bolts on top of the steering rack that fix it to the subframe. And I'll be able to do that a little bit better, I think, when I get a bit lower down. But also while I'm under it, I'll be able to undo these drive shaft. That's the drive shaft there, obviously. And there's like an inner race or bearing there that holds it, because it's quite a long shaft on this side. So I'm just going to undo these now. This is like a cap. Technically speaking, that bearing should be free now. There we go, little tap. Now don't forget, as I say, I've got the engine oil out of the gearbox, so I'm just tapping it. Pardon the camera angle here. There we go, it's out. Drive shaft's out. I shouldn't get no oil coming out because I've drained the gearbox. There we go. And that's the longest drive shaft. I've just pulled that out. That came out nice and easy actually, so that's not too much of a problem. So yeah, there we go, that's the longest drive shaft out. Right, I'm really struggling to get the rear this side drive shaft out, the short drive shaft. So I'm going to leave that for the minute. And what I'm going to do now is to go inside the car, undo the steering column nut, and then I'm going to hopefully lower the subframe. But before I lower the subframe, what I'm going to do is to clean all around the subframe mountings, all around here, and I'm going to get a pen and mark or a scriber to scribe exactly the fixings and where they are, because apparently you can put this in the wrong way and it'll be off. So it's got to go in exactly the same way as it come out. So all these fixings, for example, here, I'm going to actually mark on the bodywork so that they all match up exactly where they went back. So I'll just put a scribe mark around like the whole of the subframe. Right, okay then. Let's have a little recap. What I've had to also do here, which I didn't realise, was I had to disconnect the drop links off of the bar there, as you can see, because that bar is actually fixed to the rear, the front subframe. So both sides I've disconnected them, and the way I did that was obviously with a spanner on this side, but because they do spin, I had to put a 5mm Allen key in the end. If I can't twist that round to show you, but the bolt has actually got a 5mm Allen key so that you can actually hold the Allen key and then undo with a spanner. So that's what I've had to do there. Now I was a bit unfortunate that I parked the car, let's go around the other side, this way round, and as I say, I can't open the door fully because I needed to obviously get to the steering column, and that did present to be a little bit of a problem with me having to do some gymnastics laying across seats and all that, but I finally got there. What you've basically got is this setup. This is it as it enters the floor of the car. You have to take the carpet, there's a bit of carpet under your dashboard which you have to take out. But this, like that, just swings across there, and that, with the steering lock on, they say you've got to lock your steering wheel, but all I've done was once you put the steering lock on, the steering lock is actually in that solid position, in the straightforward position. So, and that means that you actually get to see this in the footwell, and that is a 10mm bolt. So you undo the 10mm bolt, and literally this just flicks over, and that little shaft then is part of the actual steering rack there, and that separates it from the actual steering column. It's as simple as that. So basically, once you lower the subframe down, this will go through the floor, and then you can then achieve the next part of it from underneath, which is undoing the steering rack mounts from the actual front subframe. Right, well, we're nearly there now. We're nearly at the point of removing the rear, the front subframe, and also then after that should be getting the gearbox out. So I'm going to leave it here in this video, as I say, because I've got some other family commitments now and I've got to sort them out. And I'll see you again in the next video, where we'll be dropping the subframe, disconnecting the steering rack off of the subframe, and then hopefully getting the gearbox out. Until then, see you in the next video. Bye for now.